polygamy is not a sin.
Yes.
Because there's nowhere in the scripture where it is categorically stated that having multiple wives
is a sin. Okay.
We have people like David.
David, yes. Solomon, yeah.
We have Jacob. I mean,
a lot of them.
But few.
Yeah.
I don't know where.
How many wives do you have, by the way?
Actually, I have one.
You have one wife?
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
About 11.
About 11 years.
Yes.
By now you should have like 3 wives.
Well,
since polygamy is not a sin, and God did not say anything against it. So you can't sit down here and be talking about polygamy is not a sin, and yet you have only one wife. Go and have like 3, 4 wives now. I have concubines.
I just feel like there's this restriction.
Restriction? There's no there shouldn't be any restriction.
Yeah,
now let me tell you this. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. Don't justify it. Take responsibility for whatever consequence that comes out of it, negative or positive, but don't justify it. And if you want to have scriptural justification, then balance the scriptures. Now, you're telling me Solomon had many wives. God did not say anything. David had many wives. Moses had many wives. What about Isaac? Isaac had only one wife. Isaac was barren for 20 years. He couldn't have a child. In fact, that is enough reason for him to even have a second wife, third wife. But he stuck to Rebekah. You are not saying that. You are only saying Solomon. What about Joseph? First of all, he fled from a woman that wanted to rape him, his boss's wife. Joseph eventually became the prime minister of Egypt. He could marry 100 wives. He had power, he had wealth, he had influence, he had money. Joseph married only one wife. That is not a good example for you. Joseph is not your role model. How many wives did Elijah have? Jeremiah, a lot of them, Nahum, Malachi. How many wives did they have?
These are prophets.
Many of them, were they born prophets? Now, let's now even leave the Old Testament. Let's look at the New Testament. We are Christians today because of Christ. How many people in the New Testament had multiple wives? Mark, Luke was a medical doctor. Luke, Matthew, John, James, the apostles of Jesus Christ. They were regular people before they came into ministry. How many wives did they have? You're not looking at those ones. Paul didn't even marry at all. So whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. But to say because God didn't say anything about it, then it must be right. Did God say anything about overspeeding? Is it right to overspeed? Or unless you see, thou shalt not, that is when you will believe that, no, this is what I should do, this is not what I should do. Okay, look at Rahab. She was a prostitute. She was in the lineage of Jesus Christ. Did God say anything against her prostitution? Does that mean God supports prostitution? Is that what it means? Paul said all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. If you are silent on a matter, does it necessarily mean that you agree with it? Now, the law that governs every other law, for thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your might, with all your soul, with all your strength, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Whatever you cannot take, don't give. If you are not going to embrace polyandry, marrying more than one husband, which some people do, don't embrace polygamy. What you cannot take, don't give. That is a law of God. If you marry a second or a third wife, there is no way your first wife will be happy with it. You've hurt her. God cannot support an action that will hurt a fellow human being. I mean, look at it. In the southeastern part of Nigeria, there was a time that they used to kill twins. If a woman had twins, they would kill them because they feel it's evil. It was a culture. It was a tradition. Do you think those mothers were happy despite the fact that it was their culture? You think they were happy that their children were killed?
But our forefathers had many wives and there wasn't any issue then.
Do you think those first wives were happy? Look, there is nobody that would love to share what is personal and private to him with anybody else. I mean, your boxer shorts, would you love to share a boxer shorts with somebody else? It's private and personal to you. A woman will not be happy if her husband is shared by other women, naturally. Just like you will not be happy if your wife is shared by other men, naturally. So, because it's a culture and tradition, you think those first wives, those women, you think they were happy? They had no choice because the culture has bound them. The tradition has bound them. But all in all, whatever you cannot take, don't give.